start? Yeah, so I'll do the honors. So it's indeed a distinct pleasure for me, to introduce our guests here. And I thank all the students who have joined, and if any colleagues have joined as well. So I would like to introduce Mr. Ranodeb Roy. So Mr. Roy did his BTech in Computer Science and Engineering from IIT Kanpur in 1990, and his PGDM from IIM Ahmedabad in 1992. Mr. Roy is the founder and CEO of RB Capital Management Private Limited, an asset management company based in Singapore. He is also a member of the board of directors of Bandhan Bank, Bandhan Financial Services, and Bandhan Financial Holdings Limited. Previously, he has also been on the board seat at Make My Trip. So in his previous professional instinct, he occupied the position of managing director at Merrill Lynch in Tokyo, New York, and Hong Kong till 2007. Managing Director at Morgan Stanley at Hong Kong and Singapore till 2011. Mr. Roy started his career at Bank of America, Mumbai in 1992. Mr. Roy is involved in numerous philanthropic activities, including founding an NGO called Utsarga Charity. He is also a founder of Ashoka University and has also set up multiple chairs for professors at his alma mater, IIT Kanpur. His involvement as a director in Bandhan Financial Services Limited and its upstream holding company and downstream bank started with his desire to get involved in Bandhan's TUP, Targeting Ultra Poor program, which targets employment generation objectives for the country's ultra poor. He is also instrumental in helping set up Gyanshala, which is India's largest slum primary education project at Kolkata. It's indeed a pleasure for me to welcome you to this forum today. And we also have the pleasure of inviting and having with us Mr. Ajinkya Kulkarni. Mr. Ajinkya Kulkarni comes with rich experience of working in lending and financial services for over 6 years. Before starting Wint Wealth, Ajinkya was vice president and head of merchant lending business at MSwipe. Through MSwipe merchant lending, he enabled credit access to thousands of merchants who otherwise won't get credit facilities. In a short span of 6 months from launching, he built a profitable portfolio of 25 crore plus. Before MSwipe, he was at Credit Vidya, leading its marketplace business, which enabled low interest rate loans for first-time borrowers. And before working at Credit Vidya in 2014, Ajinkya started creditperiod.com, an invoice bill discounting platform. Creditperiod.com was successfully sold to Flex Loans, I hope I did not mispronounce it, in February 2017. Again, we have with us our very familiar face, Akash. Many students might have seen him in the campus as well. So Akash Keshav Singh, Akash is an alumnus of IIT Gandhinagar from the class of 2015, currently volunteering for 14 Trees. Previously, he served as Director of Development at Competitiveness Mindset Institute, worked as Business Development Executive at Arista Networks, and lead R&D engagement with IITs at Mojo Networks. Just after graduation, he co-founded a startup in the domain of road safety. During his stay at IIT Gandhinagar, he was involved with various administrative initiatives and led NYASA, a social organization of education for underprivileged kids. He also held the General Secretary and President post of the Student Council at IIT Gandhinagar. His recent project, Reflection of the Decade, which has the inspiring stories of his batchmates and their journey of the decade since their admissions in the IIT ecosystem, got a very positive response from the IIT community. Akash has given talks about entrepreneurship, his experiences as a student leader in a developing institute, and navigating the challenges of undergraduate life at various IITs and other premier institutes in India and Sri Lanka. I think it's a great pleasure for me to invite all of you here, Mr. Roy, Akash, and Ajinkya. So
thanks.
I hand over the dais to Akash and Ajinkya to moderate and conduct the session.
Thanks a lot for the introduction. So just a couple of things I want to mention before we start the session. So he has prepared a very nice slide deck. So mostly he will take 20-25 minutes. And we will ask questions once he will finish the slide. And if any of you have any question, you can directly ask. If you are not comfortable asking directly, you can either send a message to me and Ajinkya, and we'll pick that question and we'll ask. So Ajinkya, you want to add anything?
No,
Thanks. So over to you, So
thank you. You can call me Ronnie. Professor Saha has agreed to give 1 point for every video on among the students for any course he takes. If you take 3 of his courses, he'll give you 3 points. So, and on that basis, 3 of you put on the video. Let's hope others put on the video as well. I prefer to kind of see who I'm talking to. But I can understand if you're in your night pajamas already.
all of them are in hostel, so I think they should be comfortable opening the
Exactly.
on their cameras. At least we can see our hostels also. It's been a while. We haven't seen the hostel rooms.
Oh, thank you so much. Anyway, lots of
Thanks a lot.
videos now on. So it's very interesting. When I joined IIT Kanpur, 86, the person who probably ragged me the first night, I know ragging is illegal now, was JE1 of 84 batch. He was also from Bhilai. And Nabil Budhiraja. I mean, the name cannot be better.
Yeah. So he recently set up a chair at IIT Bhilai.
I know.
Right. Yes.
And he probably doesn't remember because like the ragging is a serial ragging thing, but like, but I remember obviously. And then coincidentally, my local guardian, who was the doctor and who lives in the same building where I am currently, is where my parents stay. He was also from Bhilai, and I think he's a Bengali from Bhilai, but he was posted in IIT Kanpur as a local doctor. So if any problem I had in medical, instead of going to the health center, I used to go to his house and also get a meal. So those are my 2 Bhilai connections. With that, I will start. Let me share the screen and it was I think Achinka's and Akash's idea to come up with this extremely difficult topic. Let's see.
Go view. Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is, the longer you've spent away from engineering, the more difficult it is to come up with ideas on engineering. But I've tried to. In life, you will come up with many such examples of where Murphy's law plays a role, and but of course, it starts off with engineering school as well, right? And continue to hound you over the course of your life. And I've come up with suggestions at the end as to how to deal with it. So to begin with, for those who are unfamiliar with Murphy's law, it typically, when something that is supposed to go wrong, and you hope it doesn't go wrong, it always ends up going wrong. And that's when Murphy's law is applicable. So it happened during, for a team of engineers in Edwards Air Force Base in the US, where Ed Murphy, the person who was responsible for a certain experiment where the amount of force on a human body could sustain. This is for a space program in a rocket launch. And there were certain speeds that they were supposed to reach, beyond which the human body should not take the amount of force. And there are many things that were set up. And of course, the first time he tried it, it malfunctioned. And from then onwards, Murphy's law was known as Murphy's law. Essentially, just when you want everything to work well, it doesn't work well. So an example of that in engineering school, I don't know if you guys, Professor, please help me. When you grade and when the institute grades, do they grade based on normal distribution or based on absolute numbers?
It actually varies from instructor to instructor, but mostly it will be normal. Mostly.
Yeah,
actually,
so
pattern,
almost,
we'll stick to this bell curve.
almost, almost all my courses in IIT were relative grading as well as I am. And in life, of course, everything is relative grading, leading to the great Hindi term called Arjigiri. So you must have, if you haven't faced it, you will, where you think you're in the 1 mark more than where you'll get an A or a B. Now I must immodestly say it didn't really happen with me because most of my grades were reasonably good. But that's where you think you will be, just above the grade A or a grade B, or I didn't put C here, but in reality, when it actually turns out that very often in life you'll be just 1 mark below the cutoff point, right? So that's where Murphy's law once again plays a part, where you just get 1 mark below the A point, the B point, and end up getting the next grade. It'll happen more frequently than the normal distribution or any other distribution will actually suggest. So more common examples from both your time and my time. As my daughter was telling me, my daughter is in now, my daughter's in 3rd year and 4th year college. So one of them was expecting in-person exams and had studied a lot and was doing very well in the exam. And just before the final exam, like a week back, and she's in New York, it turned into an online exam where, as you know, online exams tend to be slightly more easier for a lot of people because you have a lot of time. And I don't know, some people can consult others, but I didn't say that. So that's again Murphy's law in place. And it happened to me, let's say, there's a very important class about to start, and you queue up in the mess. And of course, your queue in the mess is always the slowest moving queue. It happens in, bus terminus, train terminus, airplane, immigration queue when you're traveling to foreign countries, happens all the time. And the moment you move from that queue to the next queue, thinking that is moving faster, that will start moving slower, right? So I don't know if computer scientists in graph theory and in model Murphy's law into it. So similarly, it in fact just happened when I was coming to Calcutta. I'm currently in Calcutta from Singapore, and I booked the tickets, and then just when various restrictions were being put on because of Omicron all over the world, I tried to change the ticket, and of course, the day I wanted the ticket was very expensive. Similarly, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but in our times, nowadays everything is saved in the cloud, so it doesn't happen as much. But in our times where data was expensive and you try to save something on the computer, you need to create space, otherwise the computer will crash. So the things that you deleted is the file that you deleted would be the one you needed the most someday later. And so the examples of Murphy's law in engineering. So that brings me to my first summer internship program. How many of you worked in Mumbai? No, nobody. So
I was in Mumbai.
Okay. So Mumbai, have you taken the local train to work
Uh,
during office hours?
no,
Yes.
I think yes.
So it is a unique experience. I hope many people do not have to take it. So it is like 1 million people into one train ka dabba, and 1 million people getting out, 1 million people getting in every stop. So I used to live with my cousin in Andheri, and my work was in Nariman Point, in end of where I was interning at City. That's why I put the City logo there. And by the time I has to come out, the work is start at 9. I has to come out at Church Gate, which is like a 7-8 minute walk from my office, at around 10 to 9. And 7-8 minutes I was to reach the office. By the time I has to come out, it should be completely drenched. Didn't have money. I has to do the second class, not the first class, where apart from the scent of the people, crowd was the same. And so I decided the final day of my summer internship, where I have to make a presentation at 9:30, I will do something different. because by the time I would come out, I would be sweaty and it wouldn't look good in the presentation. My tie would be all over the place. My hair would be all over the place. So I decided to wear t-shirt and normal trousers. And I took my nice ironed shirt, a leather bag, and my tie inside it. I kept it on top in this thing. So I was hoping I'd come out and then in the bathroom I'll change just before presentation. And I don't know if you know about Dadar, which is really an epicenter of crowd coming in and out of trains. I saw one guy just take my bag and just run, and along with a million people. And there I was in a t-shirt, reaching at 10 to 9 at Churchgate. And my presentation is going to start in like 40 minutes. And I'm in this really bad looking ugly t-shirt, sweaty, etc. So anyway, I started walking. And of course, at 4 to 9, there's been no shop that will sell you shirts. I found this guy on the road selling shirts. And whatever shirt he had, the first shirt I got, I picked up for 25 rupees in 1991. It was a reasonable amount of money for me. But 25 rupees, even in those days, didn't get you much of a shirt. Anyway, it worked. The internship, I managed to borrow a tie from someone. I wore that shirt. But again, that one day was the one where my thing got stolen. And that was the day I had the shirt I needed to wear. So now, as you embark on your life, you're going to start investing. You start making money, you'll start investing. And very often you'll see this scenario. And it happens to 90-95% of people. The moment you hear a lot of people making money from various things, right? Whether in the stock market or gold market or Bitcoins or whatever the newfangled thing is. The moment you join the party is when the market starts coming down. And it happens more often than it should. And there's a reason for it ultimately. It's not really Murphy's Law, but to you it feels like Murphy's Law. It's because what you are thinking, others also start thinking. And as everybody starts thinking the same way, the market obviously turns, right? Similarly, the exact opposite happens in investing. There's something called stop loss, where you can't take the pain anymore, and you said, okay, this much of loss is more than enough, and you're going to get out. And just when you get out is when the market turns. Right? So this is an example from like 15-20 days back. So I was short the US dollar versus Thai baht. Now, Thailand is the main country for tourism in Asia. It has a huge amount of export earnings from tourism. And of course, with the start of COVID, tourism got hampered, the currency weakened. So this chart going up, dollar Thai baht goes up, it means the currency weakening, Thai baht is weakening. And that made sense because, tourism stopped, nobody started traveling to Thailand. And I said, okay, I think, so this is the first wave of COVID, this is the second wave of COVID. And this is like restrictions, etc. So I thought here is a good time to kind of, because the second wave of COVID started coming down, everybody was opening up, Thailand came up with new schemes to attract travelers from around the world. I said, oh, if I get in here, I go short here, I think Thai baht will go back here and I'll make a lot of money. So here I did it. Then Omicron came. And again, all these things, started and I stopped out here. And the moment I stopped out here, this is like, December 1st week, inexplicably the market turned. Although Omicron is still rising, the market is turned. So today, the Thai baht is even stronger for no particular reason. So, again, an example of how markets take you for a ride. You can call it Murphy's Law, you can call it whatever, but it is what it is. Similarly, another such examples, we dial a long number, the line is never busy. Right? Law of alibi, if you tell your boss you are late for some excuse, that excuse will actually end up happening. So for example, like again, you just ordered something good, finish your work, and that's when your boss will call you to say to do something for him. Similarly, when there's no rush, you'll get all the green lights in traffic. When you're running late, you'll get as many red lights as possible. I don't know if you've had the feeling you're in a taxi or a car and you need to go someplace very quickly, you will see all the red lights. Similarly, when you're opening a medicine box, always when you start opening it, you'll see it's from the wrong end. I don't know why it happens. Like, it happens. So the first time I experienced Murphy's Law, you guys will not remember this, but India and Pakistan used to obviously be a very big rivalry in cricket. And so this was the very early part of India's emergence as a cricketing world power. And this is 1988, Australasia Cup final in Sharjah. Pakistan needed 4 runs win this in the last over. And Chetan Sharma, who was the bowler, had already taken 2 wickets in that over. One was a run out, one was a wicket he'd taken. So it looked like India's going to win. Very unlikely that Javed Mian is going to score. And of course, Chetan Sharma balls a rank full toss outside the off stump and is hit for 6. And every Indian who was listening, those days was radio more than TV. It was like, oh my God. And that was the end of Chetan Sharma's career. There's no way he could recover from that particular ignominy of getting hit for a 6 in the last ball, which has happened after that a few times in India's favor, etc., including what he's done. But similarly in life, so as I said, as Professor Saha said, I started my work in 1992 in Bombay. And then some company found me and I moved to Hong Kong. It was very difficult to move to foreign country those days. And I was one of my earliest guys in my batch from the IIM class to start working abroad. And of course, Asia was booming. Various Southeast Asian economies were really doing well. And that's where a lot of money was being made. So I got moved to Hong Kong, got the job, and within 6 months, the Asian crisis hit. It was the worst crisis in Asia's last 70 years of history. And a lot of companies went under. The company I was working for went under. All 250 employees of that company lost their job on one day in the worst crisis. So everybody's looking for a job and nobody wants to hire. So of course, I think back and said, how could it happen to me? And there's no explicable reason. I did not have to take that job. I had a reasonably good job. But anyway, that is the learning, and you had to fight it out and come out of it, and it all works out. So that's an example of, I guess, Murphy's Law. Similarly, by 2007, I was doing very well in a large organization called Merrill Lynch, and I had the best ever year in P&L terms in 2007. November 2007, October and November 2007, Merrill Lynch had huge losses in New York. So they let go of the CEO, they let go of the CFO, the chief risk officer, the head of fixed income, and I was one of his 9 direct reports. So a new guy came and they got rid of all the guys who were working under him. So I got, for no particular reason, I was in Asia doing something else. It was the best year that was going on for me. And of course, everybody gets their bonus in January. I was let go in November. So no bonus for the best ever year I've ever had historically. So I guess I can turn to Murphy. Right? So then what do you learn from all this? So I think Mahendra Singh Dhoni put it very succinctly. He says that, look, you guys will always have a bad day, bad year, or a bad over in the case of a bowler. The question is, a bad over in a T20, in the last over, 11 runs or 26 runs. You have to plan for it. You can't just not go in planning for it. So how does one, make sure the trick is to plan for an over that gives only 11 runs and not 26 runs? 11 runs is bad enough. 26 is what will cause the disaster. So you need to plan for it. The second thing I think is you need to have a broader understanding of what your job actually means. Your job is not necessarily what your boss just tells you to do. So to succeed in your job, you have to consider a broader responsibility, because it is the kind of things that you think it's not your job that goes wrong. Because you probably know your job very well. But once you take a broader responsibility and think everything that can go wrong is also your responsibility, then you can avoid those things from going wrong. The other common misnomer is Murphy's Law suggests that everything will go wrong rather than it could go wrong. That's probably not true. There are many things in life that will go right for you, but you will remember the ones that don't go wrong. The reason why you reach IIT Bhilai is many things have gotten right for you. Right? So you should keep that in mind. So that allows us to kind of understand that errors in life will happen. They're unavoidable. It happens in professional life or personal life. So, but it's so futile to kind of try and beat things that go wrong. But rather, one should have plans of action with what can go wrong, how to prevent, have a plan B in life. So obviously, Edwards engineers did not succumb to that tragedy. They obviously revolutionized air safety and made sure those people who go onto the rockets were safe. So to summarize, one only remembers the things that go wrong, but that's not true. Most things do go right for most good people. And bad people are punished by society's law. Only good people are punished by Murphy's Law. So if you're getting Murphy's Law, you're probably one of the good people. And finally, it's something I read over the weekend in one of the newsletters from one of the hedge fund managers. So the mountain never ends. And that's a saying from, a mountaineer. Essentially, when you're climbing a mountain, you think it's over, but it's not over. So this is a metaphorical mountain. In life, your problems will never end. Right? So whether it's physical or metaphorical, always be more climbing to do. So you'll always have to prepare and have some more energy left for the next mountain to climb. Because invariably, even if you think you've done everything, something will go wrong or can go wrong. And in life, it's a long life, things will go wrong. But you have to climb out of it and you have to climb the next mountain. So anyway, with that, I'll stop.
Thanks a lot for summarizing the entire session in a very, I would say, clear manner. So I think there are two options. If anyone has any question, you can ask. Then we will go with our question, or we can start, and you can ask later. Both options are here.
1 mark extra if you ask now.
Yes.
Hey, hi, I'm Gaurav. So I'm not answering anything for marks right now, but I'm currently basically pursuing my PhD. So I'm not associated with IIT Bhilai, but I found this talk pretty interesting. Therefore, I decided to join. Great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Like my question is there a way I could use Murphy's Law to my advantage?
Yeah, you will by assuming the things that will go wrong is well prepared. So,
But this, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, in life, you'll always have a plan A and a plan B. So tomorrow we are supposed to go for a trip to a nearby boutique hotel. I mean, we've come to Calcutta. Kids have come from New York. We haven't really gone out, and it's COVID everywhere, and it's rising. West Bengal cases are like second highest now in the country. So we had a planned drive to a small boutique hotel 35 kilometers away. And the car we booked, just before this call started, called to say that the driver is not going to be able to make it.
Mhm.
So, we had a plan B, fortunately. Yeah, we'll have a plan. So it's like that. I mean, that's how you beat Murphy's Law.
I see. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
I have a question. First of all, thanks you for such a great talk. I believe it will be really fruitful for us. My question is that, like, for every task which we do, it always has some positive and negative sides. Like it, almost all the tasks which we have high probability that it can go wrong. So like, it is obvious like it can go wrong. So like, my question is that, like, how can we prepare for the task? Like, it can go wrong. We believe, we accept that, but how to prepare for that so that it will be less wrong than we expect.
See, firstly, if it is a high priority or going wrong, then you probably won't even do the task, right? So yeah, it's only the low probability event that goes wrong, which is a surprise, right? Um, so, so the high probability is well taken care of. It's a tail of a normal distribution that you don't expect, right? So, like, obviously, if you're an IIT Bhilai and you're all very good students in life, you've done well, go to IIT Bhilai, you know what, nobody thinks you'll get a C or a D, but in life you will end up getting C or a D sometime, right? So
Yeah.
you prepare more.
Yeah, and trailing to this question, like, do we believe that we shouldn't take risks in our life because it might go wrong, and we end up in getting more wrong things in our head? So, like, should we avoid risk then?
That's a great question. In my life, like, remember Amitabh Bachchan Sholay?
Yeah,
Remember the coin toss?
yeah, I do remember it.
He was cheating, right? He knew he was going to take the riskier option.
Yes,
So in life, I've always taken the riskier option because it is more fun. Learn more,
and
experience the
parallelly
richer.
following the Murphy's law,
Sorry?
and parallelly following the Murphy's law, like both together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, essentially, it's okay. I mean, look, if you did not take risks, you would not have joined IIT Bhilai. I'm sure most of you are not from
Surely.
Bhilai, from some
Yeah.
other town and city, and there is a local engineering college you would have gotten into, right? That itself is a small risk, right? It's a manageable risk. It's a small risk. But in life, I'm sure your uncles, aunts, some have said, हाँ यहाँ एक अच्छा engineering college है वहाँ चले जाओ ये भी अच्छा है वहाँ rank अच्छा है ये but you've taken a different option, right? So similarly, I was doing quite well in Hong Kong when suddenly one day I got a call and said there's a job in Tokyo. This is in early 2000s, and I never visited Japan. I knew it was a language barrier issue there. There were practically no Indians in Japan those days. And it took me 5 minutes to decide a great job in Hong Kong, an unknown job in Tokyo. I will take the unknown job. So I took the unknown. It is a fantastic 6 years of my life.
Yeah, so like in that situation, we should avoid Murphy's law then. Like when we avoid
Yeah.
dilemmas kind of thing in our life.
Yeah, I mean, the road A versus road B is different from Murphy's law. Like Murphy's law will come when you're most complacent.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for the valuable answer.
So anybody else? Ajankya, you have any questions?
I've been thinking about it since the topic came up. Like, what I want to like, obviously there is no one right answer to it, but as you start working towards reducing the risk by accounting for Murphy's law, you also start reducing the size of outcome, right? So how do you size probabilities, and then how do you arrive at what is your framework for that? Like,
It's a tough question. Actually, Murphy's law is probably, I mean, though you're in the markets, Achinke, you know. So there are these, every year, I write an annual newsletter. I write a monthly newsletter for my investors. I also write an annual newsletter. And people ask me this question, saying, what are the unknown risks for next year? Now, if I knew what the unknown unknowns were, then it wouldn't be a risk at all, right? Because I would have already known, right? You know the known unknowns or the unknown knowns. But the unknown, never know. You have to make it up as it comes, right? Nobody knew COVID was going to be like this, right? Nobody knew in 1997, the Asian crisis will cause the stock market to fall 50, 60, 80, 90%, right? What is going on in Turkey, I don't know if you guys are following, currencies like moved down 70, 80% in the last 2 years. Like, nobody in Turkey assumed that would happen. So, so it's the unknown unknowns, the unplanned thing. But you have to answer your question, Achinke, you have to calibrate your life in making sensible decisions that will make things difficult for you, will not devastate you. Right? So, for example, people are in your generation and others are investing in Bitcoin, right? And other cryptocurrencies. If anybody asks me, I'll give you my view. But so I was talking to a friend of mine, son, same batch as my daughter, and son is in Northwestern in Chicago, my daughter's in New York. And he was saying his roommate, 21 years old, has an account balance of $500,000 trading cryptocurrencies, right? Unfortunately, it's going to devastate him someday. Either that, or he's a genius and he'll become a billionaire very soon. So it's one of the two. But the chance of the latter is very low. The chance of the former is very high, right? So take risks. Make sure it doesn't devastate your and your family's life. Because if it doesn't, you're going to bounce back. So take calibrated risks. I was asked to go to Japan, which is a first world country, which is one of the world's richest economies. They won't ask me to go and find, uncut diamonds in Rwanda, right? They were asking me to go to Japan. So it was a calibrated risk. What can go wrong? So the thing is, I come from a reasonably humble, middle to lower middle class background in Calcutta. So to answer your question, Achinke, whenever I take a decision, and if people say, oh, what if this happens and goes wrong? My answer is, if everything goes wrong, will I be better off than where I came from?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then there's no real downside. There is downside if your lifestyle is such that you can't go back to your own home. I'm in my old home where I grew up between, 1978 and 1986. Right? 1986, I left home. I can sleep in the same bed. My parents, 84 and 78, have no issues having the food they have. I can have food in the fanciest restaurants in the world. But if I can come and stay here, it means even if I get devastated in whatever risky decision making I'm taking, if I'm better off than here, then what is the downside? So when in 2011, I was making a lot of money, Morgan Stanley. A lot of money. And I said, I don't want this. I want to set up my own firm. Right? Anybody who is close to me knows me well saying, do it. Most others who said, Are, you're getting so much money here, just carry on. I said, it's much more fun. And I was 43 then. I said, like, if I don't do it now, if I don't do a startup, people do startups in their 20s. Like I was doing a startup at 43. Right? So if you don't do it now, I'll never be able to do it. Right? So I have to do it. People say, what if it fails? What if your hedge fund fails? Right? I said, again, coming back to the same example. Worst case, I'll go back to Calcutta and stay in the place that my parents are in, right? And I had other real estate, so I wasn't that worried. I said, I'm better off than that, so don't have a downside. So that's how you calibrate your and rationalize your decision making. What's the worst case downside you have? That's how you calibrate the decision. And take the risk upward. No great story ever made, no great wealth was ever made without taking risks.
Yeah, so I think a very interesting perspective, like calibrated is. So see, I have a couple of questions, but if anyone has any question, can interrupt me, and I'll stop. So just first question I want to ask, your J rank was 22nd, then your IM Ahmedabad topper. You
J
got
rank was 20.
20, yeah. You got
I'll tell you why. There's the first time in history
yes.
JE couldn't figure out, and there were two 20s. There was no 21.
Yes, in same IT. So even that was my next question. I wanted to ask how it happened. Like Jay doesn't do things like this on the same rank. There are two people. Yeah. So your rank was 20th, and then you got into IM just after BTech, which is very rare, and then you were topper at IM. How it feels losing job twice, the first time and the second time. It's not easy to cope up with those kind of situation when you have seen the success or whatever you have done in your life, you are doing pretty well, and then suddenly because of someone else you have to, like at Merrill Lynch, it was not your fault, but you have been asked to leave. So how you usually cope up with these kind of situation?
So let me tell you the first incident and then the second incident. First incident, I was on a business trip to Mumbai. Of course, you never think it could happen to you, right? You always hear, yeah, Lehman has gone under, this has gone under, people have lost jobs, but you never think it's going to happen to you, right? So I was working in a firm called Peregrine, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. And I'd gone on a business trip to Mumbai. I was flying back Hong Kong. I reached Hong Kong airport. I called my desk. So the desk was a shared number, and a guy called Chandrakant picked up the phone. And I said, like it's 5 o'clock. I'll reach office by 6:15 or so. He said, "Fayda nahi hai. Ghar jao." I said, "Why?" There were no mobile phones then yet. It's just about coming. So हमारा खत्म हो गया. I said, "What do you mean by खत्म हो गया?" नहीं, Peregrine is gone under, declared bankruptcy a couple of hours back. I said, okay. तो सामान? So I said, बोला गया कि कल आके ले जाओ. Anyway, I said, okay, fine. So Hong Kong, you were given those days visa. You were given 30 days. So Jan 8th, it happened. You were given 30 days. The visa was for 30 days. So if you were, and under exceptional circumstances, you were given 30 more days. So this was an exceptional circumstance. So I kind of knew I probably had till March 8th to get a job. So basically, Monday morning, all 250 of us who lost their jobs looking. The good news is, there were very few people with my kind of background. As I said, there weren't that many Indians. There were very few people. So while my JE rank was 20, my ISC board rank was 1. If you put that in your resume, everybody wants to meet you. And everybody also wants to meet you to gossip to find out what happened in Peregrine. So no matter who I called, they said, come meet. So I made a rule that from 8 in the morning till 5 p.m. in the evening, I bought this banking almanac, बोल एक magazine जैसा होता था. A to Z, whichever organization is there, I'm going to call them. Whatever number is there, I'm going to call them. Some secretary will pick up. I'll say who is the CEO or head of something or head of fixed till I reach a person. And then I'll give my 2-minute spiel of who I am. I say I want to meet. LinkedIn, etc. wasn't there. Emails were not that thing. We did not have laptops and desktops at home. There was no work from home culture. So it was print out. You need to, I'm going to send it. The email concept hadn't come. The World Wide Web was just about starting. So Hotmail had just not yet been invented. So that was it. Cold calling, 8 to 5. My thing was, I'm going to keep calling till somebody picks up. My rule was I have to make 5 meetings a day until I met 5 people. It was a network effect. Job search is a network effect, right? So that was that. So that was in 1990. 8. Second one, as I told you, I was making a lot of money. 2006, 7. I was at 8 o'clock in my office. I got a call, boss, saying, Ronnie, we just want to kind of tie up the strategy meetings for next year. Come to my room. So I said, now, normally these things are planned in advance. So I said, yeah, now. Went to his room. There at like 8:10. He was there on the phone with some guy in New York. I had 2 bosses, both the bosses. And they said, we're letting you go. I said, why? We're having a record here. And he'd been told what to say. He knew they were wrong. They knew there was no excuse. He said, we're letting you go. I said, you need to give me a reason, right? No, Ronnie, sorry, but we let you go. I said, okay, fine. And no real reaction. He said, and we need you to leave the building now in the next 5 minutes. I said, what about my usual Indian mentality? What about my saman? So I said, we'll pack it and let you go. I said, okay, fine. Can I pick up my pen? The family photograph I have on the desk. I said, yeah, you can do that. So I went to the desk, picked up. The HR person was there, and like she kind of knew me because we'd worked together in various things. I said, it's okay, you can pack. So I put everything in a box. Everything in your office should always fit in a box. I just took it, went for a holiday the next day. And in 15 days, we planned a massive holiday. This is November, December. Nobody hires in November, December in Wall Street. So we went to Jaisalmer and various parts of Rajasthan for a holiday. Came back, started looking. By then, had reasonable amount of net worth, so I wasn't going to have a problem. And again, everybody knew I had a good year. I had a reputation. I don't know if it's appropriate to say it, but I'll say it. Next day, I was called by Citibank for a job interview. I was in the elevator, and I was out in New York and Tokyo for a few years before, so I didn't know. So this guy in the elevator, an Indian guy, he said hi. I said hi. I said, you remember you'd interviewed me? I'm from IIM Calcutta. Like, of course, I didn't remember. But so I introduced myself. I said, yeah, everybody knows who you are. You're the Amitabh Bachchan of fixed income in Asia. I said, oh, really? It was like the hilarious comment. I said, no, I'm no such guy. I'm just a guy who just lost a job yesterday. So you just have to bounce back. The thing about bad news is it's yesterday's news, right? So today is the first day of the rest of your life. That's how you lead every day.
Right. Yes. So there is one very almost everyone asks this question. So and probably Ajankya can also pitch in to answer this question. What prompted or what motivated you to go? See, one thing even I was discussing with someone day before yesterday. So you are in computer science, and computer science is always a high-paying branch. So I'm pretty sure money was not the motivation for you to go into finance. So what was the reason you, or when you found out that you are interested in finance and you want to pursue a career in finance? Ajinkya, you can also pitch in.
Ajinkya, why didn't you go? Because your answer will be better than mine. I am 100% sure. Mine is a very bad reason.
Yeah, no, I think it's just what you enjoy. If you like, and I think that there is no one calling as such. You come across things. It is a mixture of both. What you enjoy working, and then you becoming good at it. And once you land on that, you start doing well. You start getting paid. You start enjoying, and there is somewhere also ego in the background, because once your efforts start getting recognized, once you start making deliveries, it start growing. Saying you start getting interested more, you start spending time more, and you end up there. So I've done a bunch of things, ended up here. Could have ended up somewhere else. May not be 1,000 different things, but could be one of these 3-4 things that I. But it is not something that I necessarily chose or said, let's do this because at the start, I mean, you enjoy the process, and then you eventually decide, hey, let's do something here.
Yeah, interesting. You want to add something or?
So my answer is not as solid as Ajinkya's. My answer will get a 6 on 10. So as I mentioned, like my J rank was very high, but in 86, IIT Kanpur, computer science ended at J28. It started at J28, it ended at J28. So 18 of the top 28 were in IIT Kanpur. Of it, 16 were in computer science, and one took physics and one took electrical. So even though my GPA was in the 9.9, 9.8 range, it was 9.8 when I applied abroad, I was still fifth in my class of 16. Right? But my point was, I'm going to apply for the top 3 schools in the US for computer science. So I like computer science. I especially liked algorithms. AI was just starting then. Theory of computations, those are my favorite. But I said, if I don't get these 3 top schools in the US, then my next is IIM Ahmedabad, which is the top school in India for business. Then the next 3 in US, then IIM Calcutta, so on and so forth. So I had a mental ranking. So I didn't get those top 3 US universities. I got all the IIMs and all the other US universities. So in my decision-making tree, which was made, like 2-3 months before the entire program, it's very clear what I wanted to do. So my dad was quite upset because his dad had studied engineering in Benares, and then he continued to do masters in UK. And he says, "Why aren't you going to the US to do like masters and PhD?" And I said, "Well, here's my chart. I showed it to you. I'm going to follow it, right?" So that was the reason. And again, finance, I just stumbled upon it. Again, a bad reason. Bank of America paid a few tens of thousands of rupees more than Hindustan Levers, which was marketing. There was no other really, like Bank of America and Citi were the 2 top players, and there were a few. The markets were not the same as today, and there were not big computer science hirers. Of course, the Googles and all didn't exist, and
Yeah.
of course, then it would have been a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. So anyone has anyone wants to ask anything? Anyone? Ajinkya, you have?
No, all cool from my side.
Yeah. So then I'll continue. See, one thing I always wonder, right? I'm not an engineer anymore, but somewhere that engineering background helps you in thinking. It makes, I'm not saying we are good thinker. It just gives you an edge even. So if you're doing sales or if you're doing some non-technical job, there is high probability you will take a very different approach as compared to traditional people who has done MBA or went through that training of that particular job. So in finance, how your engineering background or be specific, computer science, you are from computer science, I think you are from mechanical, how this engineering background helps in taking decision or it helps at all or not? So that's the probably next question.
Look, I mean, there are very, very smart guys who are St. Stephen's Eco, people who are chartered accountants, and people who've done computer science or math or physics or whatever, right? So I don't think there's any difference. I think your first degree is just that. It's just your first degree. Also, I can say that with conviction now. What you learn today, what you will do in the future, may have very little to do with each other, because almost everything that exists today didn't exist in 1986 to 1990 from the world of engineering and otherwise, right? So what the first degree does for you is teaches you in problem solving. And every small turn, every Murphy's Law thing that you is a problem solving exercise. Right? You're great giving problems. First time, Jinky, I'm sure you fixed income world, you needed to create something for your lending program. You need to sit down on your Excel spreadsheet and come up with something, right? That you didn't have, and you didn't have the money to buy it. So you created your own solution, right? And that engineering teaches you how to solve problem smartly, right? But I've known guys in Merrill who I've hired. Guy was a white American guy with a first degree in Chinese literature because that was what he was interested in.
Wow.
And he was exceptional in coding, exceptional in problem solving. I had one guy who was a Olympian. He was a Princeton, and he was an Olympian silver medalist in rowing. He used to work for me. May not be as good in solving engineering problems, but was fantastic in. He was again doing structured products for me. Referring to your. So problem solver can come from any walk of life. Engineering gives you an edge in the quantitative field, but it's not the only field.
Right.
So I have one question. This is following up. So it's very interesting to understand about this, varying backgrounds still doing well. As you were mentioning about problem solving and problem solving strategies. So I have on an unrelated note. So when you recruit, how did you recruit an Olympian with this background? What did you find in him? Like you found out later that he was exceptional, but at the time of recruitment, what did you look for?
It's very, very clear. Every exceptional sportsman is exceptional. There is no doubt in my mind. That is, if all things being unequal, if the guy is exceptional, as in world number 1, 2, 3 in something, he will put his mind and energy into focusing whatever else you give it to him. There is no doubt in my mind. Because
what about the Chinese literature trained guy?
No, he was from MIT and he applied, which means he'd studied already.
Right. Okay.
So he wouldn't have applied if he was going to be writing books in Chinese literature. He was interested in all kind of jobs. So he'd already done the homework. So so recruiting, as I tell my kids, GPA.
Yeah, so Ajinkya, you want to add something? Maybe.
So an Olympian has an exceptional GPA. GPA is
so when excelling in something gives a mirror to his, what he's going to do.
Yeah. If he's excelled in something and he wants to do something else,
yeah, he will.
Very good chance that the person will excel in that thing as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, just adding on to that, why that is very important is if somebody is, let's say, Olympiad number 1, right? Even if you are, let's say, brilliant at maths or you don't become number 1. So you have to figure out the playbook repeatedly, rinse it, repeat it, and then you eventually become number 1. Let's say Magnus Carlsen, or Vishwanath Anand in chess. They were brilliant players to be born with, but that didn't make them number 1, right? If somebody becomes number 1, it requires repeated grinding out, right? Figuring out playbooks, what works, and keep iterating till they become best, right? And if somebody has done that, and if they choose to do it somewhere else, they have that mindset, that mental model, that attitude to grind it out, right? So it makes sense. I mean, in fact, at Windwealth, one of the things that we look out for is we always look for a spike. So as to say, in any field that people can have, and to the extent if someone, like we recently ask a candidate what is your spike, he told me he used to win a lot of India level Dota or some other gaming championships. And it made sense. I mean, we'll still go and hire that guy because it's a spike in my mind, right? So that spike at a level which basically indicates something, that is that person has the process right of becoming the best. He has that kind of energy to grind it out. So if he sets his mind on he or she sets his mind on something else, more likely that they will succeed.
Correct. I mean, if I may add just one thing to that. So I've had good experiences with, obviously high IQ, high GPA people. but it's not a necessary and sufficient condition for success. What Achinkya said, that spike to be repeated, not for 1 to 5 days, but repeated for the entire work life of your 30 years to be really successful. Because the world is sniping at you, the competitors constantly. So you being very good in one thing once in your life is not good enough. You need to be able to wake up early in the morning, have the energy to go and do it again and again. So for those in this group who are extremely brilliant, who don't need to study, don't need to attend class and wake up at 12 o'clock, it's not going to work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right? Because the world is not like that. The world still wants you to come in at 7 or 6 or 5 or 8 in the morning and do repeatedly the same good thing every day.
Interesting. So I have 2-3 more questions. So if anyone has question, then I'll cut down one question. Otherwise, I'll continue. Anyone? Okay, so I'll continue. So this is actually very common, I would say, perception or question we as an ITN face. So there is one question like, as an ITN, what we should expect from our life? Or I would say it's not about our life. Sometimes it's about what others are expecting from you. How to balance whether you should fulfill the society's expectation or whether you should fulfill your expectation as an ITN. So, and also how the life. I don't know how to answer that question, but yeah, this is the question. Maybe first part, if you can answer.
The first part, I'll answer in 1 minute, which I took 70 minutes to answer to the class of 1970. So it's very simple. It has to come from within you, but you guys are one of the brightest people out there. But that brightness has been achieved not just by you. There's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Right? So it's been your parents, it's your society around you, siblings that might have sacrificed something. Make sure you get into IIT and the amount of money set aside for tuition or whatever. Somebody's made sacrifices. So it's not just you, it's your parents, your teachers, your professors that's made a success out of you. And most of those have gone unrewarded. Right? As a thankless exercise done for your promotion to a level. And if you have some amount of moral net worth, when you can, you should repay it back to society. Not to the same people, but to the society who do not have that advantage. And that's why many of the things that I founded, etc., is with that background in mind. Essentially, you've taken something from society. If you don't give it back in multiples, then you've made your society poorer. You've taken it, you used it, you've gone on a holiday somewhere, you settled abroad somewhere. It doesn't help the society where you came from.
Right.
That's very critical.
That's true. So thanks a lot for answering. This is very important. So actually, my one question was your motivation behind all this philanthropic work you do, because you are more popular because of your philanthropic work than other roles, I would say. So, so moving to the next question. Actually, this is something even I wanted to ask. So last 1.5 years are like quite tough for everyone. What is one thing which kept you motivated and you sort of followed that particular aspect? Okay, I'll do this every day to feel like I'm doing something. It's been a very tough time for especially students because you prepare more of a IT is not about curriculum, it's about the experience. And I feel even sad that most of students are missing that experience.
I agree.
There is no motivation after some time to attend the classes, but they are pushing a lot to attend the classes and go for the online exam. So what is one factor for you which keeps you motivated throughout the COVID?
Firstly, I mean, in my job, it's a fiduciary duty. I've taken on other people's money, best for them. If I don't do a good job for them, then I've cheated them, basically. So it is my responsibility to make sure I work even harder in a tougher time. So obviously I've worked hard. I've worked the hardest I have in my career in the last year and a half.
Wow.
And of course, work from home makes the boundaries between, the work never ends, right? So
Yeah.
that's one. But at the same time, I also know the many of the other activities that you were referring to are suffering, right? I mean, poverty in India has grown. There's no question about it. I see it from my involvement in Bandhan. Like, people can't repay their loans, right? So you have to redouble your effort to, ensure the society you've taken from has to be given back, right? And for that, I need to work more to make money to give them more money. It's very simple, right? So in my mind, that's very simple. Work hard, money, you use some for yourself and the family, and the rest has to go to society.
Nice, interesting. So last question from my side, and maybe we can wait for a few more minutes if anyone has any question. So this is from students only. So what advice do you have for someone who sort of wants to pursue their career in finance? Ajankya and definitely both of you, if you can pitch in and just answer this question.
Achika, you first.
Okay, so even like I had this misconception in college. So the common myth is finance is very interesting. The truth is it is very boring, right? So figure out a lot of time, like probably do a couple of internship and commit to it after a couple of years of work, whether you are actually made for it, right? So these roles like finance, investment banking, management consultancy are glorified a lot, right? But they are very boring and also very toll taking on your mental health, physical health, etc. Right? So don't blindly commit. Do give it a try. Worth giving it a try for sure. Right? And only committed once you know, like you find it interesting. I know a lot of people who just jump into it and then struggle hard to change careers. Then they go for MBA. If they've gotten a post MBA, then they'll try to jump in a startup, right? So from outside it looks very sexy, but it's not.
Yeah.
I'll give you the advice which I did not follow. Part of it was because it wasn't available to us that easily. Read up. Right? So there are books by great investors. Their life stories are very interesting. So whether it's Ben Graham, Intelligent Investor, or Warren Buffett's books, or various other books written by various other investors, especially biographies, etc., they are very interesting as to why they did a certain thing. It might give you ideas. You might have your own ideas, but at least it will give you a starting point. I mean, India in 1986 to 1990 was different India. Socialist Democratic Republic as our civics books taught where socialist was more important than the remaining things, right? So 1992 and beyond, India is a very different India. So like I remember even asking my roommate, what is Wall Street? What are these bulge bracket firms? Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, I'd never heard of. Like, and this is when I'd already joined Bank of America. It is shameful that I didn't know. There were no real books available. Too expensive. And now that's not the case. So read up. I think the more you read, the more interested you will get. And if you don't find it interesting, then as Achinke says, then that's the right decision not to go into it. Because as what Achinke said, financial services is a boring business. It is doing some repetitive things. The history of finance, apart from few fintech things, hasn't changed for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right? It is the same banking. You put money in the bank in a deposit and it gets lent out. There's nothing rocket science about it. Right? It's only fintech firms that are kind of changing in general, banking is a very boring business.
Right. So there is one question in chat. Is it worthwhile to land into field of finance if you are already interested in? So this is probably last question because we are running out of time. So maybe Ajankya, both of you can take this question.
If you like it, it is more than worthwhile. There is a lot of money. So for sure.
Good. Straightforward answer. Right.
So my corollary to that is there's money in everything that you like. So do not where money is. Because if you do well, anything you do, making a widget, best in the world, you'll make a lot of money. Who thought one of the world's most richest guys, the guy who is going to make two friends talk chat with each other? Nobody knew that, right?
Yeah.
So if you like doing it and you do it well and you're the best few in the world, you will always make money.
Great. Thanks a lot to everyone for joining the session. Professor Sai, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it was a wonderful session. I have been like following it so closely, and hearing all the different aspects that have been shared by Mr. Roy and also Ajinkya, and I feel honored to be in that audience. It was really a nice experience to that I could be here, and I think all the other students also have gained. Some of the questions that Akash had like given were actually collected from the students.
Yeah.
I think that's why most of them are silent.
Yes.
That's
You asked also, yeah, and I'm also happy to see that someone from outside the institute also joined, because we shared it on the social media channels, and I think it got some attention. So I really look forward to having these kind of sessions. And actually, as I was mentioning, that IIT Bhilai has been awarded under the National Mission on Interdisciplinary Systems, ICPS, Cyber Physical Systems. IIT Bhilai has been awarded the Center for FinTech. So Technology Innovation Hub for FinTech. So all financial technologies. IIT Bhilai is going to be the leading institute in the country who will coordinate this with. It's like a hub and spoke model. So there will be other institutes joining in the spoke, and IIT Bhilai will be the hub. So currently there are many interesting initiatives that the TIH has taken. Like I was telling, there's a logo launch that happened parallelly, and for this foundation, there's a holding company. Actually, it's a Section 8 holding company that has been created. And under that banner, there are a lot of different verticals. For example, there can be startups, or it could be a like PhD student whose work can go into a product, and he can be funded through this. And there's a lot of nice initiatives that are there, primarily oriented towards incubation and startups. That is the main motivation here. So I think the students are going to get this. Yeah, please, Akash. Please.
I'll do one thing. I'll connect both of them with you. Then you can also share some details over mail. So if there is any sync of some other
Yes, I will actually rope in the CEO of the foundation and also the other board members. They can actually give much more details of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot, Ajinkya. Thanks a lot, Tony, for joining the session. And thanks a lot, Professor, for coordinating everything within a week. And thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coordinating, taking the pain of moderating and everything.
No, there is no pain. I'm on break. I don't have any job. So this is what I want to do right now. So nothing for me.
Thanks, Akash.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Thank you, Ajinkya.
Thanks for all the questions. Bye.
Bye.